Hello and welcome back to LTC Heroes Live. We are once again with IntleyCare on a cruise. It's called Intley at Sea 2022. Today I'm joined with Krystal Reilly. She's an LPN of North Canton, Ohio. Krystal, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Krystal, before we hit record, we were talking about how you got familiar with IntleyCare and your experience in long-term care. But before we get into your work in long-term care, I want to know why you came to hang out with 500 nursing professionals on a cruise.
The networking, just being able to kind of have that camaraderie, and then you're traveling, and some of these people that you see from your state, you see along the journey of traveling facility to facility. So that's been interesting to kind of just sit back and relax, and you have that relationship with them through the agency, and to kind of be able to sit back and unwind with them has been really fun as well. And plus, obviously, it's a cruise, so why not?
Yeah, I agree. So one thing that you said before we started recording, you said you felt like IntleyCare had really improved the quality of your life being a single mom. Can you explain how so, and how you went through COVID, and what about the agency helped you do that, but also be a great mom at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. So working agency has really allowed a lot of flexibility with being able to have a good work-life balance. I've been able to attend all of my children's sports. I have 2 boys, an 8 and a 10-year-old. As you mentioned, I am a single mom. So having that flexibility to say, hey, I can work Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and also know that I can show up for my kids' sports too, as and rewarding to be able to work my life with work versus my work working it around me, like not being able to have time off, not being able to make it to my kids' games. It's flipped now. So it's been so rewarding and beneficial in that aspect that I can be a single mom and be there for my children and work and pay the bills.
Normally in my interviews, I always ask people how they got into long-term care, but I'm going to flip everything because you started talking about family. I'm interested myself being a father and also working in long-term care and being a CNA. I have learned so much from long-term care that affects who I am as a dad. I'm interested in how long-term care has affected you as a mom. What do you take from working with our senior communities and bring them home and change how you are and relate with your kids?
I've definitely inherited a different type of respect for the elderly community. Before being a nurse, it was just kind of like, okay, you become, you grow old and you die. But now, like, I instill a lot of different morals in my children. Like, if you see them walking up to the door, open their door. If you see that they need help, help them. Any act of kindness, because there's so many different people that I've come across. I've come across World War II vet nurses. I've come across CEOs. I've come across these amazing stories and past lives and successful lives. And everyone has a walk of life that is just different, and it's so interesting to learn that. And then when they get to that age and you see that independence taken away from them, I instill that into my kids, like, appreciate this moment, because this moment isn't going to last forever, and you're going to be, unfortunately, you're going to be old one day in the elderly community, and all of that isn't going to matter. So prioritize certain things differently. And as a nurse, I've learned to appreciate the smaller things and grab onto those memories, because that's what I'm learning from my community and my elderly residents is their family, is their stories, is their vacations and experiences in life. And that's what they hold on to. We sit down and look through photo albums. So that has really instilled a lot into me to take pictures, capture those moments, because that's what they hang on to in their rooms when COVID was at its peak and everyone was isolated. We were their family. We sat down next to them and we relived and rehashed their life memories. And so now I, as a mom, make sure I have photo albums that I can keep and bring along with me in my journey as I age.
Speaking specifically about COVID, now I'm going to ask you to take off your humble hat. So no one else is in the room, just me and you.
This hat?
No,
okay.
Your humble hat.
Okay, humble hat.
I want you to be proud of yourself, and I want you to talk about what you've done in the last 3 years. What is a specific moment or maybe 2 days in a row, or a family member who couldn't see their son or daughter because they were isolated, and you ended up being, their adopted daughter as a caretaker. Is there a specific moment that you can think about during this COVID? I want my kids to know about this. I want America to know back in 2020, this is who I was and this is what we did for our industry.
So yes, there is a moment. Children, a newborn, specifically 3 months old. We knew day 3 or 4 when this person was intubated that he wasn't going to make it. He was unfortunately overweight, had a lot of underlying chronic conditions that did affect the increased mortality rate. They did get COVID pneumonia, and that's kind of what declined them through the steps of the process of COVID. But I was able to kind of relate to them, be able to kind of communicate with the family.
So then I want to ask you about kind of how you ended up being the caretaker you are in the way that you approach long-term care. Is there a mentor or a family member or one of your first supervisor or one of your educators that taught you to deliver care, but also have the compassion that you have?
Yes, my grandma, Barb Niner, she was a nurse. She's retired now. She is the most compassionate, kind, loving nurse that I have probably ever come across, and I've been a nurse for 12 years. We did get to work together a short period of time, but even now she caretakes for her mother. She's taking care of her former husband, and her late husband. So she's just instilled that don't be a nurse just because you're a fancy title or it's, money. Be a nurse because you actually want to make a difference in that person's life, and you actually want to provide adequate quality care, because at some point that's going to be you, and you want that in return. So go in with compassion, empathy, and know that they may not have family, and you're literally all they have. So if you're not in nursing to care for that resident, then you shouldn't be in it at all. So that was one of the main questions that she had always said, like, are you in it because you truly love it? Is it your calling? If not, you need to find something else to do. And so like that totally flipped my mindset when I'm in there, taking that extra step, brush their hair, put their earrings in, help them with their lipstick, make them feel as beautiful as they did 20 years ago, and take that extra moment with them just so they can feel pretty in that moment, or appreciated or helped, or whatever it is that they want. Just go that extra 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It means a lot to them.
Now we're going to go back to your initiation story. How did you get into long-term care? Was it just a job offer? Was there just something in your neighborhood? Did you know someone that you're like, oh, this person, I like working with elderly because I love my grandmother? What was it that brought you into it?
So I'll be honest, with licensed practical nurses in Ohio, hospital settings aren't, they phased out LPNs in the acute care setting. So to get a job in an acute care setting position, unless it's a stat care or an office of a branch of a main hospital, your setting in Ohio is long-term care, whether it's skilled, true long-term care, assisted living, independent living, it's geriatric. So that's I was kind of pushed that way by, I wouldn't say not by choice or whatever, but that's the route I had to go. I did have experience, and I did go into like an acute setting, but me personally, I like sitting down next to Jane Doe and talking about her World War II vet experience as a nurse overseas, and her life and her grandchildren. So to me, I think it's rewarding to just see the aspects of all these different people, all their different walks of life. And I personally love assisted living. It's my favorite. It's my specialty. And I've been doing it for 12 years, and I wouldn't want to go anywhere else. It's just very rewarding.
I want to ask you something on the positive side of long-term care and management. A lot of times where people upper management and blame them for the staffing shortage, but some people are getting it right. Sometimes some ones that are doing good at recognition. Can you think of an instance where you feel like that you've been recognized for your hard work, or that you've recognized people underneath you for their hard work, and how you do that?
Yeah. I work for a facility right now. Upper management is very supportive. They're very hands-on. If you need help, they're on the floor. If they're approachable, and I've thanked them like, hey, I've been a nurse for 12 years. I've worked agency. I've worked not just this agency, like before agency even became a thing, it was a home health facility. And I've seen the lack of support. And I think management is what makes staff.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that respect both ways, like, hey, thanks for coming in. I know it was last minute shift. I know you have a life outside of these doors. Or if I'm drowning and I can't seem to get caught up, and I go to the ADON or the DON and I say, hey, I could really use some help, and they come out and they help us, the respect is amazing. People want to work there. Like, the care is great. Like, there's just that mutual respect that does really make things a lot easier and staffing a lot easier. People want to come to work and work because they know they have the support.
Now I want to ask you I want to read some quotes to you that I think that are relevant to our industry, and see what you think of them.
Okay.
Give me one moment. Let me pull these up. The first one that I'm going to ask you is, when you are a nurse, you know that every day you will touch a life, or a life will touch yours. Can you think of an instance where someone has touched your life from the work that you've been doing?
Yeah. And I know I've mentioned this a lot, and I mentioned it a lot on purpose because it has been impactful. So her story is that she was overseas, the Vietnam nurse, back in World War II. She was told to leave. The doctors, the nurses, they had soldiers in traction. She said wounds that you couldn't even describe. And they all stayed. She was like, that was my job. They took their dog tags off, so they didn't know what religion they were, where they were from, anything. They buried them in France, and they stayed to help them soldiers. Me, prior to COVID, prior to this story, I was always like, I'm X years old. I have 2 kids. Like, I'm out. Like, I've got kids to worry about. Like, I'm not staying behind. And then you think, well, that's my job. That's what I signed up for. And when you hear these stories, and I've been through COVID, like, that clicked. And I'm like, I'm not backing out now. I'm not leaving now. This is what I'm made to do. And I went full force in COVID. I was in the heart of it, in the thick of it. And I wanted to work all the COVID units, whether I helped save one life or watch 10 go. Like, at least I knew I had an impact on them at some point in time, somewhere along their journey of the COVID pandemic.
I think that there is a connection or a relationship amongst the caregivers that in healthcare, both acute and post-acute, but especially in post-acute, because long-term care got hit so hard.
Hard.
And when professionals look at each other, like when you look at the 500 people dancing on the boat last night, there's a different understanding. You went through something different.
Yeah, we are just, I think the respect is more so now than it was before. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, even now, like, if I'm wearing a nursing hoodie and I'm out with dinner with my family, some people randomly come up to me like I'm military. They're like, thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for helping get us through this pandemic and putting yourself and your life at risk for, our family members. So, and at the same time, like, that's never been a thing. Like, I could wear nursing scrubs head to toe and no one would blink an eye at me. But since the pandemic, like, people literally come up to you and thank you. Mm-hmm. And the same with nurses. If you say you're a nurse or whatever, in exchange of conversation, we thank each other. Mm-hmm. Because we know what we've been through. We saw what people go through. We know what we went through. Mm-hmm. Like, I've seen 92-year-olds handle COVID better than I did. Literally. Like, I'm like, you don't even have a single symptom. I'm writing my will. Yeah. Like, it was insane. But yeah, there's just definitely a different camaraderie with it now.
And it's okay. This is proof that we're on a cruise.
Yes. Announcements.
We'll let them stop for a moment.
On deck 5, all the way forward in the Star Lounge. Looking for that masterpiece at not a master price? This is the place to be. Come join us for some champagne, a free work of art.
Champagne.
Ooh.
Krystal and I are talking about nursing homes when someone's drinking champagne on the other side of the boat.
I know.
Thanks for rubbing it in.
I'll be there in 10. No.
The next quote that I want to ask you as we start to wrap up is right here. It is to care for those who once cared for us is one of the highest honors, from Tia Walker. How do you feel when people treat you that way? When they come up to you and they know that you are of the highest honors, you're the most important part of our community now.
How do I handle it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Embarrassed?
I don't know that I'm embarrassed. I just think it's still kind of like a shell shock to me, because I'm just like, I'm me. I'm just going in and doing my job. And I feel like there's more important people that deserve the thank yous, like the military. So now that I'm being thanked, like I said earlier, it's kind of like, it catches me off guard still. But 2 years into the pandemic, I'm accepting it more so now, versus initially I'd like, oh no, it's no big deal, you know, I'm just doing my job. Now I'm like, thank you. Yeah. Like, I really appreciate it, because as healthcare workers, we did go through a lot, and you don't realize it in that moment, because it was such a learning curve. Every day the guidelines changed. Like, we'd walk into work and be like, okay, what's today's guidelines? Now there's a little bit more understanding across the board. It's more consistent. And we've kind of been able to like calm ourselves down a little bit. And we walk in and we're like, okay, there's no COVID today, but there could be COVID tomorrow. So we're always on alert. And the way I think now, like when I'm out on this cruise, I'm like, this is a COVID cruise. Just kidding. I'm just like, but no, like, you just think differently now. But I don't know. I think I'm just so immune to it all. But I do appreciate people thanking me, because it was a lot.
Last question for you is, if you could have one billboard, a giant billboard up on the highway in Ohio that millions of people would see over the course of 6 months or a year, what would the billboard say and why?
I would say, cherish your loved ones and embrace the memories and the moments, because with the pandemic, like, my friend that I took care of, that was my age, that I went to high school with, the week before was out celebrating his 37th birthday with his wife and just had a newborn. And a week later, he was gone. So I would say, people, if anything, COVID has really taught me to appreciate family, friends, memories more than materials and money. So it's really grounded me, and it's really made me feel like, as a community, as a state, like even different places I've traveled to through COVID, I think a lot of people's mentality has changed in as far as like family being more important than a job. Like, you know, even during the holidays, they shut down for Black Friday because you didn't have that during COVID. So now certain businesses have made that a priority so they can spend time with family, because family is important. And I think people was just work, because that's all they knew. Well, when the pandemic hit and everyone was isolated and shut down, they had those family meals. They had those family bonding moments that you didn't really have before the pandemic, because everyone was going 56 different ways. So in my mind, the pandemic, if anything, the only good thing that came out of it, and I think, is the family being able to sit down and really appreciate that moment and memory or experience, because I know I do a lot more now.
Krystal, thank you so much for joining LTC Heroes. It was great to meet you. Hopefully I'll meet you next year on another Intley cruise.
I will be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that wraps up what I hope to be a fun and insightful conversation from some of the frontline caregivers and leaders in our industry. A special thanks to IntleyCare, who made this event possible. This interview and many others this week were held at an event called Intley at Sea for Nursing Professionals Week cruise, held from May 9th to the 13th of 2022. IntleyCare set sail to reimagine and celebrate a new type of Nurses Week. IntleyCare, thank you for supporting our nurses. Now head over to www.ltcheroes.com/community and let's do care better together today. LTC Heroes is more than a podcast. It's a community.